we're live.
A very good afternoon. This is the Northeast Students Forum of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, streaming live to commemorate the International Day of the World's Indigenous People. The date marked the day of the first meeting in 1982 of the United Nations Group on Indigenous Population. On this day, we extend our solidarity to the struggle of all the indigenous people all over the world and to the protection and promotion of the rights of the indigenous people. I am Amanda Paiga from the Rongmei community, a research scholar of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. I am the moderator for today's program, and it is my honor to welcome all of you on behalf of NESF TISS to the panel discussion, I, Indigenous, Must Speak, Language as Culture and Identity. Today's panels are linguists and authors and people who serve in many other capacity to preserve and promote their languages they represent, and it is a great honor to have them with us. Before we dive into today's panel discussion, I would like to share some thoughts on the objective of today's discussion and give an overview of the program. According to the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues, indigenous people make up less than 6% of the global population, and out of the approximated 7,000 languages spoken worldwide, 5,000 are estimated to be indigenous languages. Around half of these languages are in danger of dying with the declining number of active speakers. In 2019, the United Nations adopted a resolution proclaiming an international decade of indigenous languages beginning in 2022 to draw the attention to the critical loss of indigenous languages and to take urgent need to preserve, revitalize, and promote indigenous languages at the national and international level. Indigenous languages are more than a medium of communication. They are extensive and complex form of knowledge, which is central to their identity, preservation of culture, biodiversity, livelihood, worldview, and expression of self-determination. Indigenous people face various forms of systematic encroachment which alter their relationship with their surrounding. Colonization, development projects, state policies, extractive activities, forced displacement are some examples. And this directly affects the preservation of their languages. If indigenous people lives are endangered, so also is their languages. In the context of India, with the introduction of the new education policy 2020 unveiled by the central government on 31st July, it informs the efforts to preserve and promote all Indian languages, including classical, tribal, and endangered languages. The policy encourages the use of mother tongue or local languages as a medium of instruction, at least up to grade 5. It also promotes bilingual education, multiple languages at middle and secondary level. It is considered a welcome step of the government by many, but at the same time, it is shrouded in ambiguity with no proper guideline for promotion of tribal and endangered languages. It does not address the concern regarding non-scheduled languages. So this neglect underlines the general approach towards the indigenous languages across the world. So with this in the background and responding to the call of the United Nations to bring to attention the critical loss of indigenous languages, NESF TISS has proposed this panel, and the objective is to present a discussion on the significance of indigenous languages while looking at the recent development within the Northeast region towards protection, and promotion of indigenous languages. And to give an overview of today's panel, um, we have 5 panels with us, and they will be given maximum of 15 minutes each, and they will be worn at 12 minutes to sum up their talk. And also, I will be also reading out a brief bio note of our speaker, highlighting their body of work before they go on live. So a lot of people will be seeing my face for a long time, but please bear with me. And also, I request all the audience to enjoy this Sunday afternoon together with NESF, because it's not always that we can have all these amazing panel uh, together like this, and then you can grab your cup of tea or coffee or make yourself comfortable in your sofa or bed, but please stay with us till the end of our program. There will also be a question and answer session uh, after all the speakers have taken their turn. So you can drop your questions directed to the specific speaker, or questions in general within the relevance of the topic today. So please leave your questions on the comment section, and we will attend to that. Um, yeah, so now we can I think start with our panel discussion. So the first one is Dr. Yankee Modi. She's joining with us from City. We welcome you, and I would like to read a brief bio data about Dr. Yankee Modi. Dr. Yankee Modi is a linguist and a faculty at the University of Sydney. She is from the Milang or Mala tribe in Arunachal Pradesh. She has studied Eastern Himalayan grammar and cultures, specifically the Tani language of Arunachal Pradesh. Dr. Modi has done extensive research and documentation on Milang, which is an endangered Tibeto-Burman language. Her doctoral work titled The Milang Language, Grammar and Text is the comprehensive description of Milang language. It also contributes to the study of Tibeto-Burman languages of the Himalayas, especially in the areas of hypophorecity, normalization, and focus, and identifies some new grammatical phenomena such as groupclusivity and verbal subject autonomy marking. Notably, in 2016, she collaborated with linguists Mark Post and Dubang Lipir to publish a Tangam Community Dictionary. She is also the co-director of Center of Cultural Linguistic Diversity Eastern Himalayas, which was founded in 2018, dedicated to the study and conservation of traditional cultures and languages of the Eastern Himalayan region. There were so much interesting words and a new grammar that I'm new to. So we are looking forward to hear from you, Dr. Yankee. So I give the time over to you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, thank you, Peace Nordic Student Forum, for organizing such a great forum, where it's not just linguists or people who work in the universities who are used to talking about languages, but also involving community linguists. I mean, who are who has a great experience that we will all be learning from them. Yeah, since I'm the first speaker, I would like to, and also I know that I have just 15 minutes. I like to draw the background of these discussions, yeah, to basically to come to the point that I mean where we are today, and I mean what is our position, right? So first I will start with the modern linguistic landscape that we have in India now. So we have Hindi, up there is a lingua franca in most parts of India. It's also a lingua franca, and it's I mean specifically significant language in Arunachal. First as a PEN, Arunachal lingua franca, and also languages of many government functions in India. And then we have English, which is the international language of commerce, diplomacy, and again, very significant in India. Many government functions based on this language, and also language of higher education. Okay, these languages are inescapable. We love them or hate them, we cannot escape from them. Okay, you can hear me? Fine? Okay, so that's our background. And then we also have these issues called parents' choice. Okay, so something to do with what parents choose for, for their children. So parents in India and also in the most part of Northeast India, including Arunachal Pradesh, your parents are not stupid. Parents clearly see that to gain economic opportunities, employment opportunities, education opportunities, their children will need to know these languages, So they talk to their children in Hindi and English. Yeah, at least in Arunachal, it's very, very common to see parents speaking to their tribal parents speaking to their children in Hindi and English. Well, some parents, if they can afford, they even I've seen them sending their children as young as 4 to 5 to boarding school so that they can learn, better English. So what is the result from this, the whole linguistic landscape of modern India and these social issues? What is the result of the indigenous language? The first is children are deprived of the opportunity to learn their mother tongue properly. Okay, and the number two is the decay and eventual extinction of mother tongue. So yeah, the point is, if we don't have child learners, you don't have a language, full stop. There's no language. Is it okay? I'm sure it's not. So what do? We are only appreciating a small amount of the importance of indigenous language. We accept that it's important. And of course, that's why we are here today, sitting together in this forum. Yeah, indigenous languages are important not only to communities, but also to science. Yeah, to individual group identity, to social cohesions, social welfare cohesions. And, basically, if you look at indigenous language, especially when it comes to social cohesions, it's like a gum, it's all holding us together. And if that get weakened, we will fall apart. There has been studies in Canada that has shown that high degrees of language loss correlates to higher rates of alcoholism, drug abuse, incarceration, suicide in India's indigenous population. This doesn't only affect the community, it also impact negatively on the broader society. Well, having learned that, what do we do? Well, can we tell the parents to stop speaking in Hindi and English? Well, maybe at the most we can say, yeah, maybe we should speak our mother tongue to our children, but we cannot expect them to take decisions that they know that it's likely to be harmful to the future, economic opportunity of their children. So what do we do? Well, we can provide support for indigenous language through education. That is what I'm sure national language policy and national policy, education policy is also trying to revive. And this is a very good news in many sense, but well, if you are into this field of mother tongue education, we have already heard about this at many occasions, right? There has been talk about mother tongue educations, but in actual real, implementation of how it exactly works, yeah, to some extent we know how it has failed, and in some extent we know how it succeeded. And when it comes to implementing mother tongue education, it would be very important to talk about the minority languages, not in a way, at least in India. I mean, this is a very special case, because even if we say minority languages in India, you can have minority languages in India, but you will have like thousands and thousands crores of speakers, and who will have all these infrastructures. Not only they have a robust, a huge materials that are available, resources that are available for them to develop their language and implement into as a part of mother tongue education. They also have a huge resources to fund their work. On the other hand, we also have these minority languages like Russo, like Wipo, like Milang, where we don't have anything. We are just starting. We don't have any infrastructures, and we are just beginning our work. Well, but we still want to be part of this mother tongue education, right? Then what do we do? Well, it could be that, it could have a simple answer. We can say, yeah, that we can look at this and say, okay, if this is what is required, and if it is, just about ticking boxes, yeah, okay, let's make sure that all these languages be part of Indian modern education, like Milang be taught in all the Milang areas. But when it comes to actual implementation, is also about materials, developing materials, finding the right person to start teaching these languages. And there's no straight there's no easy answer to how we can address these issues, but to that level, it's not very difficult, because we can start approaching this as mother tongue education as a bridge to education to English and Hindi, where mother tongue is used in the first year of the school during the transition. And then, gradually the students will start learning Hindi and English as their main language again. I think that's not very difficult, and that is, it's quite possible to do that. But when we also talk about, bringing mother tongue education as mother tongue language, and also culture as a subject into our school curriculum, yeah, then we need to rethink of how we are approaching our I mean, the way we are looking at implementing mother tongue educations. At present, what you see in India, I mean, if we are going to strive, if we try, and if we start thinking about, to bring, say, Milang or Wipo, or any minority, hyper minority languages to be part of the education system, not just as a language that bridge that is a bridge to Hindi and English, but as a subject that we can, that can be at par with in Hindi and English, that will take us, an enormous amount of, work and dedication. And yeah, and but that should not discourage us, because there is no reason why a large part, of our curriculum cannot be done with reference to our indigenous culture and, language and culture. Because, if you look at WIPO, I mean, look at the language structure, the word structure of WIPO. I mean, it's every bit as complex and fascinating as the word structure of Sanskrit. I mean, if you look at the social organization of Milang, it's every bit as complex and fascinating as the social organization of, ancient Rome or, ancient Greece. If you look at the oral literature of Apatani, is every bit as rich and detailed as Upanishads or Mahabharata. That's the good news. But the bad news is, in order to successfully develop and implement this program, to become a part of the subject, become the curriculum of modern school education, we need to do much more. I mean, it has to be more towards building skills and build our capacity of what we currently have. Yeah, so it's not easy to say, okay, just if you have a very good speaker, native speaker in your community, okay, go and start teaching your language. If you find somebody, a good expert storyteller, then you can't just say, okay, go down and write down all these stories, and and then it will become part of the school curriculum. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's not easy. I mean, it's not that easy to to make it work effectively. We have to start developing from the basic. We have to first develop the basic infrastructure, knowledge base, skill base. That will enable. Eventually enable us to build all these skills. Well, I mean, it's not completely impossible. There is still, we can still, start out somewhere. We can still, as I said, it will need an enormous amount of works and resources. I mean, but still it's doable somewhere. And I feel the right person, it's if even if I said, yeah, it's doable to some extent, yeah, you can ask me, I mean, who's going to do, I mean, who is actually going to do this kind of work? I mean, who are these, the government from India, or some academicians, NGOs? Well, no, nobody will do that, because if it was doable, they would have done it already. It is not possible. I mean, that's why they haven't done. But it doesn't mean that we should just be useless and be, useless and sit and just wait for instructions or funding from above. And
Dr. Modi, if you can wrap it up.
okay. Is it 3 minutes? Okay. So what I feel that it's the most important role that we need in our community is the communities themselves, the communities taking control of their situation themselves. Okay, and it's very good that in the recent years we can see that there has been lots of language organization that has sprung in all our communities, and which is very good. But at the same time, they have to refocus their goal, refocus in helping the youth and supporting the youth, finding funding supports for the youth of their communities. And yeah, and also all of us, we need to stop thinking about, language development community organization in our communities as, groups of all men who are just going to be there and telling somebody, giving orders to all of us, and they themselves will manage everything. No, if this is what is happening in our language development organization groups, nothing will happen. We have to, instead we have to reorganize our thinking. The members of these communities, the language organization communities should reorganize their thinking and see themselves as facilitators and motivators, if not for the youth, for the youth of the communities. Because if you see, it will be the youth who will be taking the language and the culture forward to the future. Yeah, and we shouldn't be shy away. We shouldn't also be shying away ourselves to build partnerships with people who are skilled and who knows and who are eager to help us. Yeah, and one last thing I want to say is we should also break down these community barriers that we build ourselves. And I'm very proud of these Northeast forums to starting you just started to doing this by bringing these indigenous communities together. We should learn from each other. This is where we started. We shouldn't wait for a messiah to come and help us. This is where we begin. We should start ourselves. We have to learn. I have to learn why it's failing in WIPO and why it's successful in Russo, in Aka. I have to know that. And if I know why that's successful is in WIPO, and if I'm a WIPO person, I have to tell the Aka that this is how we are successful. And we shouldn't shy away sharing this knowledge among us, because at the end, we are all trying to build our future, the future that we want to see, and the future that we want to see as our language sustained forever. Okay. Okay, well, I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Can you unmute? Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Modi, for that. Wonderful speech. I know there is a time constraint, but for highlighting an important point that uh, we should be teaching our mother tongue to children, and then if there is no children learner, there is no language. And also it's very interesting study which shows that a higher degree of language loss can be linked to many other social problems, and it can impact the society negatively at large. And I think that is a very interesting study that she have brought in. And also she have regarding the use of mother tongue as a medium of education. She has said that it is not there is no easy answer, but we have to begin. We have to work towards that, and then the community and the youth plays a very important role for that. So thank you so much, Dr. Modi. Now we have our next speaker, um, Anu Jebisau. So I would like to read her body of work. Anu Jebisau is from the Russo Aka community, a minority tribe in Arunachal Pradesh with estimated only 4,000 speakers. Russo Aka is recognized as definitely endangered uh, language in the world. Anu Jebisau has contributed for documenting and description of the Russo-Aka language in the capacity of a community linguist and local language consultant for the Endangered Language Documentation Project associated with SOAS London. She is also a community organizer and facilitates activities for local self-help groups in her home district of West Kamang. She has participated and spoken at several platforms on the concern regarding Russo-Aka people and their language. So it is a privilege to have her here with us today. And Anu Jebisa will be addressing to us in Hindi, which is the lingua franca in Arunachal. She's comfortable with that. So अनु जी मैं आपको हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ NESF की तरफ से, और आपने जो महत्वपूर्ण काम किया है भाषा के क्षेत्र में हम लोग वो सुनना चाहते हैं, और आपके बातें और विचारों रखने के लिए आपको अभी समय देती हूँ।
थैंक यू। क्या आप सब सुन पा रहे हैं मेरी आवाज? यहाँ मौजूद सभी को मेरे तरफ से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, और इस ऑर्गेनाइजर को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जिन्होंने मुझे 2 शब्द कहने का ये मौका दिया है। मेरा नाम अनुजेबिसो, मैं ओसो आका ट्राइब से हूँ, और ओसो आका जो अरुणाचल प्रदेश के वेस्ट कामेंग डिस्ट्रिक्ट में है, जो एक माइनर ट्राइब से है। सबसे पहले इस भाषा मेरे लिए क्या मायने रखता है, और इस भाषा के लिए मैं क्यों काम करता हूँ इसे बचाए रखने के लिए। इसलिए मैं सबसे पहले फादर विजय डिसूजा को तहे दिल से धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगी, जिनके द्वारा मुझे ELDP और ओसो सोसाइटी के माध्यम ओसो लिटरेचर टीम का एक सदस्य है। मैं ओसो लिटरेचर टीम में सदस्य होकर इसमें क्या क्या काम किया है। 100 घंटे का रिकॉर्डिंग्स है, और 20 घंटे का एनोटेशन है, और ट्रांसलेशन है 20 घंटे का। और पिछला साल हम सब ने मोबाइल कीबोर्ड ऐप, जो उसका नाम है न्यू टीम, और ओसो डिक्शनरी जिसका नाम है न्यूली, और वो सब पूरा और ओसो वेबसाइट, ओसो न्यू वेबसाइट, वो सब ऑनलाइन में अवेलेबल है, जो आप लोग कभी भी देख सकते हैं उसको। और अल्फाबेट चार्ट बनाया है। अब तक ये सब काम किया है हम सब ने, और ये सब काम करते हुए सबसे बड़ा बात ये है कि इस काम के दौरान हम रिकॉर्डिंग करते वक्त क्या रिकॉर्डिंग सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, और किस टाइप से हम रिकॉर्डिंग्स लिया है। हम अपना कल्चर को बचाए रखने के लिए, अपना आइडेंटिटी को बचाए रखने के लिए सबसे पहले हम अपना गांव में जाकर जो बुजुर्ग है, जो अपना कल्चर को सही तरीका से जानते आ रहा है, उसे फॉलो करते आ रहा है, उन लोग से हम ये रिकॉर्डिंग्स लेना चाहिए। इसलिए हम लोग इस रिकॉर्डिंग्स में बच्चे के रोने से लेकर उसके खेलने, उसके पहला जो बोली है वो लेकर, और बुजुर्ग तक का जैसे जैसे उनके जीवन में जो होते गया, उस चीज को हम सब ने बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, इसलिए उस चीज को हम सब ने रिकॉर्डिंग किया। जैसे घर बनाने का शुरू से लेकर अंत तक क्या घर कैसे बनाते हैं, और बच्चे पैदा होने का रिवाज से लेकर मरने तक का रिवाज है हमारे यहाँ, उसका रिकॉर्डिंग्स लेते हैं। हर एक चीज, जैसे हम क्या खाते हैं, क्या पीते हैं, कौन सा ओकेजन में क्या करते हैं, जैसे हम बीज बोते हैं और फसल काटते हैं, उन सब के बारे में भी सारा रिकॉर्डिंग्स है, उन 100 घंटे का रिकॉर्डिंग्स में मौजूद है। मजे की बात ये है, इस लिटरेचर टीम में हर तरह के लोग हैं, और इसमें बुजुर्ग है, महिला है, और पुरुष है, लड़का लड़की है। हम सब मिलकर इस लिटरेचर टीम में काम करते हैं। इसमें गांव से मौजूद है इस लिटरेचर टीम में। क्यों ऐसा है बोलने से, हमारे यहाँ जितने भी गांव है, शब्द तो हम एक ही यूज करते हैं, पर उस शब्दों में हर गांव में अपने ही मुताबिक से वो शब्द चेंज हो जाता है, अपने ही मुताबिक से वो उस शब्द को उसका ट्यून थोड़ा सा अलग हो जाता है, पर मतलब तो एक ही रहता है, जो कि सुनने में बहुत अच्छा लगता है हम लोग को। वो इस टाइप से बोलता है, वो गांव में ऐसा बोलता है इस शब्द को। इस तरह का शब्द सुनते हुए बहुत अच्छा लगता है। कभी दिन आप सब भी आकर सुन सकते हैं। हमारे यहाँ जितने भी उत्सव का बोले जाते हैं, हर एक गांव में अलग ही अपना मुताबिक से बोला जाता है। इसलिए हमारे टीम में भी उस चीज को ध्यान में रखते हुए हम ये शब्द को खोने ना दूं, जो जैसा बोलता है वैसे ही उसका रिकॉर्डिंग करके रखे। इसलिए सबसे बड़ा बात ये है कि मैं अपना लैंग्वेज को, अपना भाषा को, मैं अपना बारे में कुछ बातें बताना चाहती हूँ। अपना भाषा को, जब मैं छोटा था बचपन में, एक दिन ऐसा हुआ, मैं अपना भाषा बोलने के लिए भी शर्म आता था, क्योंकि कोई बाहर लोग के सामने मुझे हिंदी इंग्लिश बोलना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट समझता था। आका बोल के क्या कर लेगा, आका तो ऐसे ही बच्चा से बचपन से बोलते आ रहा है, लेकिन आका बोल के हम क्या कर लेगा, हम बाहर घूमना है, लोगों का साथ मिलना है, तो हमको हिंदी इंग्लिश बोलना चाहिए, ऐसा ही समझता था। और आका बोलते हुए भी मुझे बहुत झिझकता था लोगों के सामने, जो आका नहीं समझ पाते उन लोग के सामने। ऐसे होते गया और अब मुझे पता चला है कि ये कितना अपना भाषा बोलने में इसका कितना महत्वपूर्ण है, ये कितना अपना आइडेंटिटी बचाने में, अपना आप का पहचान को दर्शाने में, लोगों तक पहुंचाने में ये इतना अच्छा है कि मैं जुबान में बयान नहीं कर सकता है। अपना भाषा कितना बड़ी है, कितना अच्छा चीज है, इसका वजन कितना है। अभी पिछला 2016 से लेके अब तक मैं काम कर रही हूँ इसमें। इस दौरान मुझे पता चला है कि ये कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है। हाँ, बच्चा का जब पैदा से लेकर वो सबसे बोली अपना भाषा ही बोलते हैं, अपना मातृभाषा ही बोलते हैं। वो भाषा सुनने में इतना अच्छा लगता है, वो सब हम बढ़ते उम्र में भूल जाता है, और हमें कोई बताने वाला भी नहीं है कि अपने भाषा कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है। लेकिन आज मुझे पता चला कि ये इतना इम्पोर्टेंट है, मेरा ही पहचान है, हम इसी से मेरा पहचान है। जैसे हम अपना भाषा मालूम नहीं होगा तो, जैसे अभी हम ये ट्रेडिशनल हम लोग का पहना हुआ है, माला पहना है, ये ट्रेडिशनल ये शर्ट पहना हुआ है, इसका हर एक पार्ट जो हमें बताता है कि हमारा नियम में, हमारे रीति रिवाज में ये क्या होता है। इसमें जैसे हम अपना भाषा मालूम नहीं होगा तो इस माला के बारे में हमको कुछ पता नहीं होगा, इसका नाम क्या है, ये क्यों पहना जाता है, किस लिए, और कौन कौन सा जगह में ये पहनना चाहिए। ये सब भाषाएं अगर हमको पता नहीं है तो हम कैसे मालूम होगा। और कोई हमको आके पूछेगा ये क्यों पहना जाता है, इसको क्या कहा जाता है, इसका नाम क्या है, जब हम बोल नहीं पाएगा तो हम कैसे बताएगा। तब हम अपना आप को हम ट्राइब है बोल के बताने के लिए भी हम शर्म आ जाएगा उस समय। इसलिए ये बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट है मेरे लिए, हम ऐसा समझता है। और मैं एक बात और बताना चाहूंगी क्यों ये इतना इम्पोर्टेंट मुझे समझ आया है। जब मैं सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में हर महीना महिला लोग से मीटिंग करवाते हैं बस्ती जाके, तो उसमें क्या होता है, हिंदी और इंग्लिश में हम उसको बताते रहने से वो समझ में नहीं आते क्या बोल रहा है, ये क्या बोल रहा है, हमको समझ में नहीं आता, क्योंकि उसमें हर तरह के लोग होते हैं, जैसे बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, और कोई हिंदी इंग्लिश नहीं समझ पाने वाला है उसमें। बस्ती में अभी तक अपना भाषा का अलावा कुछ अलग भाषा नहीं समझने वाला है। उन लोग के सामने में हिंदी और इंग्लिश से बोल के बैठो तो उसको समझ में नहीं आएगा ये बोल क्या रहा है। इसलिए हिंदी और इंग्लिश में हम अगर 30 मिनट लगता है तो अपना भाषा में इतना अच्छा से हम उसको बताने के लिए और उसको अच्छा से समझने के लिए 10 मिनट में कंप्लीट हो जाता है, जो कि वो सुन के समझ लेता है और उसका चेहरा में भी खुशियां आता है। वो खुशी इतना खिलता है उसका चेहरा में, वो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि वो मेरे बात उस तक समझ पाता है, वो समझ पा रहा है पूरा जो मैं क्या कहना चाहते हैं वो समझ पा रहा है। इसलिए अपना भाषा से कहना ही सबसे बड़ा अच्छा है, सबसे बड़ा बेस्ट है। क्योंकि वो लोग अगर हम कुछ कहना चाहता है, वो मैं क्या कहना चाह रही हूँ वो उस तक नहीं पहुंच पाने से, उसका कान तक वो सुन के नहीं समझ पाने से मैं बोल के फायदा नहीं है उसमें, मैं यूं ही ऐसे हवा में बोल के बैठेगा। तो इसलिए अपना भाषा में बोलना ही बहुत अच्छा है। और सबसे अच्छा बात यह है कि अभी हम सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में जो मिनट्स लिखता है अपना भाषा में ही लिखता है, ताकि हर महीना में हम उसको अपना भाषा से पढ़ के सुनाओ। अगर हम हिंदी में लिखता तो फिर उसको फिर हम इंग्लिश आका में ही बोलना पड़ेगा गुस्सों में, तो टाइम ऐसे लंबा हो जाता है। और एक बात है बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट जो मुझे समझ आया है, पिछला 2015 में हमारे बस्ती में एक बुजुर्ग गुजर गया, जो वो उसका उम्र है जब वो गुजरते समय 100 साल से भी ज्यादा हुआ था। वो बहुत लॉस फील हुआ। क्यों बोलने से उनके पास इतना सारा नॉलेज और इंफॉर्मेशन था जो हम लोग के आने वाले पीढ़ियों के लिए इतना अच्छा साबित होना था। उससे हम रिकॉर्डिंग्स लेना था, उससे जाकर हम वो सब इंफॉर्मेशन हम उससे पूछ सकता था, जो कि आने वाले कल को हमारे लिए कितना काम आ सकता था। लेकिन हम खो दिया उसे, वो बहुत लॉस फील हुआ हमको। अभी से हम ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए। जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, जो जानकारी है अपना कल्चर में, जो जानकारी है जो सदियों से होते आ रहा है, जो नियम पालन करते आ रहा है, उन लोग से जाके जितना ही जल्द हो सके हम ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन उनसे मांग सकता है। ये बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट हमको समझ आया कि वो बुजुर्ग जो गुजर गया 100 साल पहले कैसा था, क्या किया जा रहा था और कैसे टाइप से हम लोग जीता था, क्या खाता था, क्या करता था। वो अभी जैसे जैसे बढ़ते गया वैसे वैसे हम सब उसमें ध्यान नहीं रहा। अगर वो रहने से उससे हम पता लग सकता था कि हाँ ऐसे हुआ था उस समय, ये सही था, ये ऐसे था। भाषा ऐसे बोले जाते थे। अभी भाषा बोलते 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 पूरा भाषा ही चेंज हो गया। अब मेरा बच्चा लोग, पहले हम जैसे बोलते थे वैसे नहीं बोल पाते, फिर भी हम सिखा रहे। हम आका हुसो है, लेकिन हम अलग ट्राइब में हम शादी हुआ है, पतानी ट्राइब में। तो मेरे बच्चा को हम हमेशा प्रिपेयर करता है कि मेरे दोनों बच्चे को वो पतानी भाषा भी बोलना है और आका भी बोलना है, हुसो आका भी बोलना है। इसलिए मेरा बच्चा दोनों भाषा बोलते हैं। और हिंदी इंग्लिश तो स्कूल में सीख लेता है, स्कूल में आसानी से वो हिंदी इंग्लिश सीख लेता है। लेकिन अपना भाषा वो घर से ही सीखना बहुत अच्छा है, क्योंकि उसे घर में जो माँ और पापा से सीखता है वो स्कूल में नहीं सीखता है। स्कूल में वो लिख कर सिखाता है हिंदी इंग्लिश, वो बड़ा होते होते वही बोलते जाएगा। लेकिन अपना भाषा उसको नहीं सिखाने से, उसका साथ नहीं बोली जाने से वो धीरे धीरे अपने आप का आइडेंटिटी खत्म होते जाता है, वो नहीं बोल पाता है, जो कि बहुत दुख का बात होता है। इसलिए मैं कोशिश करता हूँ और मेरा बच्चा बोल भी लेता है अभी तक, पर आगे क्या होगा हम कोशिश ही करेंगे। इसलिए हमारे बुजुर्ग लोग ने मुहावरे में गुस्सा का, हम लोग का गुस्सो लैंग्वेज में मुहावरे होते हैं, उस मुहावरे के माध्यम हमें कुछ सिखाए जाते हैं। मैं आपको छोटा सा 2 लाइन सुनाना चाहती हूँ वो मुहावरे को। जैसे गुस्सो में बोलता है पुतुड्रू यागु यागु वतपिकुनु यागु यागु। उसका मतलब है पुतुड्रू यागु यागु मतलब पहाड़ की चोटी पर जो ढलता हुआ सूरज है वो कभी भी ढल सकता है। और वतपिकुनु यागु यागु मतलब खाई में जो ढीला पत्थर है बीच में, उससे बड़ा चट्टान गिर के भी कभी भी तोड़ के ले जा सकता है। वो बुजुर्ग अपने आप को दर्शा रहा है, मैं कभी भी जा सकती हूँ। तो आने वाले पीढ़ी आप इसे आगे बढ़ाते रहना, इस रीति रिवाज को, हमारे पहचान को। तो इस तरह से वो लोग कह के हमेशा हमें इस तरह से वो उस 2 चीज को दर्शाते हुए हमें ये समझाता है कि किस तरह से हमारी बात आप सुनकर और आगे ले जाना है। इस तरह हमें समझाया जाता है। तो मैं आज का ये मेरा तरफ से इतना कह के मैं समाप्त करना चाहती हूँ। थैंक यू।
अनु जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण सवालें उठाए हैं, और अगर ज्यादा समय होता तो हम आपके मुहावरा भी सुन लेते, मगर आज इतना टाइम भी नहीं है। और आपका जो योगदान है अपना भाषा बचाने का और अपना आइडेंटिटी को प्रिजर्व करने का जो काम है वो बहुत तारीफ का काबिल है और आप लोग को आका रूसो आका कम्युनिटी को हम लोग भी ऑल द बेस्ट कहना चाहती हूँ और thank you so much Anu for sharing to us about your community and she also shared to us how her literature team documented the languages by recording even the cry of the baby and building of the house and from every little detail of the community so that they can in the process of documenting their language and their identity. It's very interesting. I'm sure that was a very interesting journey and she also highlighted how important it is for us to capture all those nuances in order to understand the depth and meaning of our language. So thank you so much, Anu. Next, we have a very interesting person in the panel. He is also from Manipur, and I am also from Manipur, so I'm so happy to introduce him. We have Mr. Mosel Khaling. He is from the Khoibu tribe of Manipur, and Khoibu tribe is one of the oldest and endangered indigenous community in Manipur, and basically they are residents in the Chandel district of Manipur, and Mr. Kaling was honored with the Excellence in Community Linguistic Award 2020 by the Linguistic Society of America for his outstanding contribution and long-term commitment to ensure the maintenance of Weipo language. I think it is another interesting fact is that he started his journey at a very young age of 17 years old without any external support, and his ingenious method of documenting by resorting to the collective memory of the community elders is noteworthy. Mr. Kaling was also the convener of the Khoibu Tribe Recognition Demand Committee and Khoibu Literature Society. The Kwipo or the Khoibu tribe is still on demand for national recognition as a separate indigenous tribe under the Constitution of India, and the issue of Weipo language facing disappearance and not finding a place in the UNESCO list of endangered language was also raised by Mr. Kaling. So we are really looking forward to your talk and we welcome you. So please take your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Madam Yankee, Madam Monali, Madam Anu, and Sir Kamal. आप सबको सलाम करता हूँ. I salute everyone and all the online participants, viewers. I am very pleased to have been invited for inviting me by the NESF East Mumbai, bringing these people together. I hope you can hear me. Hello. Amanda, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. You have introduced me in a very big way, but it's a very, I am a very small community linguist, which yes, I started from my early age working on this language. So you have mentioned Khoibu also. I will just say something about this Khoibu. Khoibu is derived from Khoipu. which is called by the Meitei king. So this, our ancestral forefathers, used to take beehive and honey to the Meitei royal king as a gift to please him, in order that the Wipo people can be exempted from the porter service of His Highness Royal Entourage. So, so the king called them Hoi Pu. From that, Hoi means bee, Pu means to carry. So the people who carried bee and honey. So from that Hoi Pu, this Hoi Bu arrives. Now we are known as Hoi Bu popularly, but we call ourselves Hoi Po. Okay, that is about Hoi Bu. And most of the things that I plan to talk was all said by Madam Anu. I think the thinking line is same. So I am given to talk about the importance of the indigenous language, and so, then the challenges I face and my experience and role in the society. So in terms of this importance of indigenous language, Madam Anu has covered almost everything. Say from birth to death, from farming, jungle clearing to the harvesting, from collection of housing materials and the construction completion of the house, and other ritual things, other ritual celebrations like say normal ritual prayers before doing anything, after concluding the work, the ritual prayer after finishing the work, and say rhymes and lullabies, folk tales, folk songs, and riddles, proverbs, all in this, and marriage, engagement, and giving childbirth, and say burial of the dead body, and maintenance of the cemetery. All in all these things, in all these activities, language is there, because in all these activities, songs and ritual sloks and rhymes and the prayer are spoken there. In that rhymes and in that songs and in those prayers, language is there. So to understand these things, these customary ritual things, custom activities, cultural activities, one has to understand one's language, because language is involved in there. To understand what actually is practiced in the life, language is more important. Nowadays, what happened, yes, Madam Anu has also mentioned, nowadays, at home, even at home also, parents used to call beta, hi, my son, hi, darling, and children also say mommy, papa, uncle, auntie, like this. One's own language is, say, unknowingly, unconsciously, or say intentionally avoided. And some people here, some people are so have the pride to do so also, and some people are doing it unconsciously, and some people are doing it intentionally with pride, as if we know English, we know Hindi, that way. So to understand one's culture and tradition and customs, one has to understand these ritual things, ritual celebration, ritual activities, customary activities, cultural activities. And in these cultural activities, without the language, it is not possible. So the possibility, the importance of the language lies in all these activities. So I must say, I would say that we indigenous people must speak our indigenous languages as culture and identity. Without the language spoken at your home, without the language written in your note, your culture, your identity is either lost or you have denied it. Now I'll come to the challenges I face. Here is a small piece of interesting story. When I was a teenager, it was way back in early 70s. One of our old ladies, on overhearing someone speaking, the word simple is not our language. Someone said, the word simple is not our language. And overhearing that, that old lady encountered, no, 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 no. The word simple is our language, our Uyghur language. It has been spoken by our forefathers. So from that moment, it struck me as a challenge. So that made me as a challenge to find what simple means to us, how simple is spoken in our language. Till now, I am looking for that. I'm seeking for that. And the challenge is that, the other challenge is that people think that they don't need to learn more on language, our language, because we know it. I know it. What more should I learn from language, from Igbo language? So this is another challenge of not knowing actual culture, actual tradition and customs and those ritual things, because they don't know. So the challenge is that we have to inculcate, we have to cultivate the knowledge of this traditional, ritual, customary, and cultural things to the people, including small children. And another challenge is that nowadays I have become an odd man out in the public gathering. So cultural gathering, ritual activities, because as a part of my mission, I used to go there, I used to present there with my cultural dress, wearing my full cultural dress, where everybody wears the normal shirt and trouser with coat and tie. So I become an odd man out. But still, uh, I receive encouragement so from learned people. And the other challenge is that most of the knowledgeable elders who knows the traditional things, ritual things, and customary things, and leaders and traditional healers and cantors Cantors means the song, cultural song leaders, song composers, cantors, and many of them are now getting old, and many have died one after another. And I am racing against the time. So these are the crucial challenges I'm facing right now. Amanda, am I running out of time? Amanda, can you hear me?
4 more minutes to wrap it up.
Okay. Okay. My experience is that I made so many mistakes. Yes, I started very early of my life, from early stage of my life. I made so many mistakes, from which I am learning now. From my mistakes I committed, I am learning a lot. And so that is my great experience. I started working knowledge, this working language since 1976 at my late teenage. So compiling, composing church hymns and Bible projects, etc. So we, in that course, without any guidance, without any technical knowledge of the language, with my friends and with my bosom friends, with my like-minded friends who we worked together at that time. And in the late of the early 2010s, from early 10s, one gentleman from Central Institute of Indian Languages by the name of Dr. Chandramani came to my life. He took me to CIIL Mysore, Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, for undergoing some basic training on data collection. So that was a big milestone. I salute him also. And after that, the rest is history, because Scott Delancey came into my life, Pavel Ozerov, Linda Connor, Mark Post, and of course, Madam Modi, and Stephen More, and Kellen Van Dam, and Nick Kay, and many people of the linguistic world. They have guided me, they have encouraged me, they have appreciated me. I feel like, I have after all, at last, I have a family of my own there. So they have made me even to foray into the lanes of Linguistic Society of America, thanks to ALS also. So, and the role in my community, I try to avoid these politic things, because in politics, I feel that politics sometimes divides people. So I tried as much as possible to avoid political activities so that I can interact with anybody for the linguistics approach without without giving any doubt to the consultants. So every children, every elder, every young people, and every person in the Ulpo society is my guide, is my consultant. Everybody is my respondent. So I don't go to much of the political things. So by saying so, that I let me conclude my speech. Thank you.
Matang, Sir Mosel. It was our pleasure to have you with us. You are also a very elderly person who holds a very rich knowledge about language, and I think it is an honor to have you in the linguistic fraternity. Thank you so much for your contribution towards language, indigenous language, preserving indigenous language. And he also have stressed an important link between knowing one's language to understand one's culture, custom, and tradition. And also he emphasized the importance of speaking one's indigenous language so that we can carry on with our cultural identity. And he also have highlighted very important points on the challenges that he have faced in the field, and that as many linguists might be also facing. And one important challenges that I want to once again highlight is that there are a lot of knowledgeable elders, leaders, traditional healers, and cantors in our community who are facing a challenge of time because of their growing age. So I think it is important that we go and learn from them. So thank you so much for your interesting speech. Next, we have our next speaker, Dr. Kamal Tati. Dr. Kamal Tati belongs to the Adibasi community from Assam, and he speaks both Sadri and Assamese language. He has a PhD in astronomy and astrophysics. Dr. Tati is a multilingual poet, critic, writer, and translator, and uses Assamese language and English for his writing. His poetry collection, Marang Guru Amar Pita, Our Father Marang Guru, published in 2007, won him the prestigious Sahitya Akademika Yuva Puraskar in 2012 for Assamese language, as well as the Munin Bar Kotoki, I hope I'm pronouncing right, a literary award. His first collection of prose, Nimna Borga Somaj Oitija, Subaltern Society Legacy, published in 2007, was composed of critical essays on subaltern historiography and post-colonial theory with specific reference to colonial history and culture of Assam. Dr. Tati has also written for several digital and print journals, using his poetic narrative style to highlight the life and concern of Adivasi community in Assam. So I would like to give the time to him, Dr. Kamal.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much. Johar, Sabka Johar, Namaskar. At the very beginning, I would like to thank the Northeast Students Forum of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, for giving me this opportunity to speak for my languages on this very auspicious day, the International Day of World's Indigenous People. I also would like to thank all the students who have come up with this idea and organized this important event. I also would like to thank all the students who work day and night to make this kind of events a success. So first, I have a few clarification. The main motto of this event is I must speak. Yes, I must speak my own language, my native language, and I should speak up for my own languages, my native languages. With much regret today, I had to speak up here in English due to technical reasons, or so that it can go to different levels. Although we are talking about our own languages, but we are speaking in English. That's why I'm really very sorry for that. The topic of today's panel discussion seems very interesting to me, but at the same time, it's really, really challenging as well. Amongst the experts and linguists of various languages here today, I am that person who just uses the language to express the thoughts and thought processes of human being, the ideological and socio-economic standing of a writer. I also want to clarify here that I am not a professional linguistic expert, although I have done some limited works on Adibasi languages of Assam, but I cannot compete as an expert. I can just share my ideological thoughts on the subject matter only as a writer. So first I would like to quote one Navajo teaching. Navajo is a Native American community. So they have a saying like this: you should teach your children that the soil under their feet is the ashes of their grandparents. To respect the earth, you must tell your children that the earth is full of the lives of our ancestors. So since I'm a poet, I would like to quote from my poetry as well how I got into the language debate and language politics and language dynamics. So all these things I started with my poetry. So I wrote a poem a long back in Assamese initially, then it has been translated in English. So the poem is called The Winter of Grief. Our ancestor Maranguru is our creator. We are born of his bones, his roots, our soil and water, our forest, our river. We have received everything from Maranguru's body. In our blood, our ancestors' scarlet river. In our body, our ancestors' thunderous promise. In our mind, our ancestors' strength of blood. Oh, our ancestor Maranguru, be our guide and be the golden sign on our destination. We build ourselves, our lives, our youths. We build ourselves, our soil, our water. Oh, our ancestor Maranguru, show us our way and open up before us the century-long shadow of memories. So in another poem, I'll just quote only the last few lines. In that poem, I have written that I am history, the history of two hidden centuries. I am the history of colonization. I am the history of the colonized. So whatever I'm going to speak up here today regarding the Adibasi languages, I would like to refer another poem of mine, then I will go to the actual discussion. This poem is a long poem, but I'm reading only few lines from the fifth part. The poem is like this: we are told that historians call us other people, other. We go and stand on the land. They come. They bring their egos. We are stunned, black, sons of the soil. They are tall, white, flawless. We are distant from language, heritage, culture. We are trapped in their coils, in the damned illusion of language. They come from gold mines across the seas, across the oceans, searching for El Dorado in the east. They find mines of gold, silver, diamonds. We watch, our mouths wide open, and speak in a calm silence. We watch, our mouths open wide, and speak in a calm silence. Come is still our language. Will we ever find our language and other language? So I'll come to the actual discussion now. I'll just put up some few points. It is really very difficult to come up a longer discussion within a short period of time. So I will touch upon few pertinent points of my main area of interest, that is the Adibasi languages of Assam. First, I regret to announce that the Adibasi languages in Assam are dying for various reasons. They are endangered. Before commenting on these regions, I would like to show the actual picture of the day. What is the current scenario of these languages? The Adibasi languages in Assam can broadly be divided into two families of language. Whatever languages we are speaking in the tea gardens, we are speaking in the villages, we are speaking in the hills, we are speaking in the jungles. that can be divided into two broad families. One is Austro-Asiatic languages and the second one is Dravidian languages. The Austro-Asiatic languages include Santali, Mundari, Bhumis, Birhar, Kora, Ho, Turi, Asuri, Korwa, Kurku, Kharia, Zhuang, Sabara or Chaura, Garaba or Boro Garaba, etc. So there are 14 languages I have mentioned right now. They are from Austro-Asiatic languages family. And out of these languages, only 4 are spoken by large number of populations. All the other around 10 languages are actually endangered languages right now. And I just would like to add here that mostly those language comes with those people when our forefathers came to Assam to work in the tea gardens. So next one is Dravidian languages family. So that includes Telugu, Kuruk or Urao, Malpahari or Malto, Gondi, Kui or Korja. So there are 4 languages I have mentioned from Dravidian languages. And out of that, Telugu is have a large number of speakers from Andhra Pradesh. So some people from Andhra Pradesh came to work in the tea gardens as well during their migration. So though it is spoken by very less number of people in Assam, but still it is a major language in India. In Assam, Kuruk and Kui languages are spoken among the people in the tea gardens and Adibasi villages. But still, except Kuruk, other languages are endangered actually in Assam. So we can think of Kuruk, that means Urao. So that is spoken by a large number of people. All the other languages are not much spoken. So as for the language, there is some pidgin or mixed languages as well in Assam, which are spoken among the Adibasi populations here. They are Kuruk, Mundari, Santali, and Malta. So why I'm telling them as a pidgin, because these languages started stepping up as pidgin after the market system arises and people start learning each other language in the market, and that way they become more popular and useful in the market. There are a bunch of oral and written literature in these languages, including various folk songs, folk tales, etc. The pidgin or mixed languages reached Assam in their contemporary form. So when they have migrated, when the people have migrated, our forefathers have migrated, this language also they have taken along with them, and that has reached Assam. So in their contemporary form, during the forced migration of a large population to both Brahmaputra and Barak valleys. So this similar phenomenon happened to Sadri as well. Sadri is a lingua franca that is spoken in Assam as well as in Jharkhand and other places. It has a large base of people speaking this language. But in Assam, this Sadri has a quite influence by the Assamese and Bengali language. Assamese in the Brahmaputra Valley and Bengali in the Barak Valley. So Sadri has been evolved from Pachpargania, Kurmali and Khatha. Sadri has been influenced by various non-tribal and non-Adivasi languages as well. In Assam, Sadri has been influenced by Assamese and other indigenous languages of Assam. Now, when we talk about Sadri, we find there are some words from different languages also has been picked up. So this is the very brief about the Adivasi languages in Assam currently, what we are speaking and which are endangered, and what languages we should we are talking right now. So now I would like to share some points of contemporary Adivasi languages of Assam. So this is a general observation. The first one is there is no written form of these languages. So you cannot see any written literature except Santali, because Santali is included in the 8th schedule. So Santali, there are some books published from Assam also in Santali, like Jharkhand. But for the other languages, there is no written form for these languages. So the second point is there is no standard script for these languages. Whatever we have talked about, those are all colloquial form except few. So several linguists suggest that taking up Assamese script to standardize these Adibasi languages of Assam. So people are arguing that we should take up the Assamese script for to standardize these languages. So since there are similar practices available in Bengal and Odisha, and in somewhat they are little bit successful. So where the Adibasi in Bengal and Odisha, the Adibasi population have taken up Bengali and Odia scripts to write their own languages. In that scenario, I believe that if we take up the Assamese script, the current Assamese script, then it may be inadequate to express various phonetic expressions in Assamese. So I argue for an extended phonetic Assamese script and alphabets to be used for these languages. In that way, even the Assamese language will be more developed in the coming days. At the same time, we can save those languages. We can have those oral literature or written literature in printed form. So because printing is not a difficult, if we can get that an extended phonetic Assamese script. So in that case, I'll just give an example. Say some particular language, say in Sadri, say for example, we also call Chiria. Chiria in Hindi is also there, but Chiria also if we call in our villages, then the cho is not there in as a phonetic way in Assamese alphabet. So that can be included in the contemporary Assamese script itself, and that we can use that for our own purpose. So
2 minutes left.
yeah, I'll finish it up quickly. In the current scenario of Unicode system, these languages along with their extended phonetic Assamese script should be included in the Assamese Unicode system itself. For number four, right now it is not possible to make or use these languages as the medium of instructions in the schools of Assam. At school level, it will be really difficult to implement these languages as medium of instruction for various reasons, because there are a lot of resources are not available, teachers are not available, system is not available. Rather, we may opt for an alternative system. The books of these language learning books, the whatever books we are using right now, say in Assamese or English, should be included. These books should be included the vocabularies and words of Adibasi languages of Assam. So whatever the words, say for example, there is a particular word in Assamese, we can include the other respective Sadri or respective Santali words in the book, so that the students can learn all the languages. So this means that with every picture, for a picture word book, along with Assamese, English or Hindi, the respective words or vocabulary should be mentioned and printed. This way, the Adivasi children can learn all these languages smoothly. But at the same time, we should also be concerned about the loads of learning, because it will go for a multilingual learning. Say at the same time, the student has to learn Assamese, English or Hindi maybe, or say that particular his or her own native language. So it will be a multilingual learning system. So the last point I would like to make out here, the words and vocabularies from these languages should be included in various dictionaries and word books. So there are a lot of dictionaries in Assamese, even in English or other languages. So I urge that the words, whatever words we normally speak up in at our homes, those words should get placed in the dictionaries as well. So I have a few proposals that I have made earlier in 2013. So in that case, I have talked about that the school learning in schools, the medium, the changing of medium is not possible right now, because there are a lot of lack of resources are there, lack of system is there. In that scenario, what will happen if we implement say Sadri or Santali in some Assamese schools in place of Assamese? That will actually work against us right now, because Assamese is a state language, so we should learn that language. But at the same time, we have to make up another system or an alternative system so that our words, the vocabulary should be included in our learning system. And I have also proposed that in the universities in Northeast India or in Assam, so we should come up with a modern Adibasi language department. So where it can be a full-fledged department, including all the languages, including Sadri, Sautali, Mundari, and etc. Or we may go for a different department, but that is not possible. So I opt for right now, in the current situation, I support this idea of establishing modern Adibasi languages department, so that all this language can be taught in a process, say maybe a certificate program, maybe a MPhil program, maybe a diploma program, and say we can work on those languages in the PhD level. And also I urge that the dictionaries, the word books, the whatever resources for learning a language is there, our words, the Adibasi words, Santali words, or Mundari words should be included in those dictionaries and word books. So these are some of the proposals I am making from since long time, and we are working on it, how we can reach to the, because here what will happen, whatever we do the policy making, the load will be go to the young students, very young students. Say at MA level or PhD level, it's okay, but in school level it is really difficult to give such load to the students. So by saying all this, some I don't know, you will find useful or not. These are my own ideas. So I'm wrapping up this session now. So if you have some questions, or if we can make the discussion further in this regard, and I hope that students will take, research scholars will take interest in the Adibasi languages of Assam, and which will be very beneficial for the community. Thank you so much. Thank you to NESF for making me part of this program, and thank you. I'm finishing up here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamal, and Hul Johar to you again. And thank you for bringing in the indigenous writer and poet's point of view, and for reading out your beautiful poem from your collection. And thank you so much for highlighting the fact once again that the Adivasi Assamese language are highly endangered due to the decline of speakers. And in the course of his speech, he have also mentioned about his various suggestions and proposal that he have made, and to preserve the Adivasi Assamese language. Most of the indigenous language are not in the written form, and it is transmitted orally. So it is very challenging for indigenous language to come up in a very structured educational system, because we need to work really hard on the ground. And since there is no standardized scale for the language, and also he have also suggested that the vocabulary and words of Adivasi to be introduced in dictionary and word book. So thank you so much, Dr. Kamal. Next, we have Dr. Monali Longmailai. Dr. Monali Longmailai belongs to the Dimasa tribe and hails from the town of Haflong in Dimasa, Hasao district of Assam. She is presently an assistant professor at the Department of Linguistics Assam University in Silchar. She has edited and compiled 2 books titled Studies on Dimasa History, Language and Culture, Volume 1 and 2. She specialized in morphosyntax, aerial typology, ethno-linguistic, language documentation, and Tibeto-Burman languages. She is also the literary secretary of the Dimasa Youth Forum. She received her PhD from the Northeastern Hill University in 2014 for her thesis titled The Morphosyntax of the Dimasa Language, where she conducted a study on the Haso dialect, the predominant dialect practiced in the North Kachar Hills. Like most languages of the Northeast, the Dimasa language also has no script of its own, but instead borrows from the Bengali script and Kokborok. I believe this is a Tripuri language, if you can explain that later. And in this regard, Dr. Longmailai research on Dimasa and linguistic within the Tibeto-Burman family has been one of the first extensive linguistic research carried out within the region. So with that, I welcome Dr. Monali Longmailai.
Good afternoon to everyone. Am I audible? Amanda, am I audible? Okay, I will continue. Since all the speakers have highlighted the importance of speaking one's language and the necessity of community activity to develop the language and to maintain it. So I will not take too long. I will talk about my language, Dimasa. Firstly, Dimasa is a Budugaro language from the Tibetan language family. It is spoken extensively in Assam in the southern part and in Dimapur in Nagaland. There are 4 dialects, Hashau, Howard, Demra, and Dijua, depending on the region where they are found. So Hashau in Dima Hashau district, Howard in the Barak Valley, Demra in Jai district, and Dijua in East Karbi Anglong and Dimapur district. They have sub-varieties as well. So Hashau has around 4 sub-varieties, Dijua has 2, Demra has 2, and Howard is yet to be identified. The number of speakers will be approximately 1.5 lakhs, but in the 2011 census, it has not covered the entire Dimasa population, so it comes to around 141 113. Dimasa is a highly multilingual, as I have mentioned, of the regions. In the Hawar region, that is in the Barak Valley, where Bengali is the lingua franca, so Dimasas where they are highly multilingual along with
Dr. Monali, if you can put your mic closer, because we are not
mic
very
closer.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was trying to say is the lingua franca of the Dimasas are varied depending on different regions. For those living in the Hawar and the Barak Valley, Bengali is the lingua franca. For those living in Hashau region, that is Dima Hashau district, Hafrong Hindi is the lingua franca. For those in Demra region, as in Hojai district, Assamese is the lingua franca, and for those in the Dijua region, that is Dimapur district in Nagaland and East Karbi Anglong, mostly broken Assamese and Nagamese are the lingua franca. So when we want to talk about the 3-language formula for the Dimasa language, I would recommend these 3 to 4 languages to be distributed evenly based on the region. So in Assam, Assamese cannot be feasible for the Dimasa population entirely except for the Demra region. So if the first language is Dimasa, then the second language for Hashau will be Hindi. The second language for Hawar will be Bengali. The second language for Demra will be Assamese, and the second language for Dijua could be either Assamese or Nagamese, and the third language could be English. Then this is based on their multilingualism and fluency. Next, I want to talk about the domain of use. Now, most of you might be knowing that Dimasa is an endangered language, endangered because it is vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense that there is limited domain of use. Of course, the good news is the Dimasa speakers use it at home. And as long as the language is spoken at home, the language remains safe. However, there is little documentation done. There is less publication of materials, and the language is still coping in the social media. So there is much work to be done among the community members, linguists, and language policymakers. So now here I come to the importance of language activism. When we talk about language activists, we try to identify those people who are actively engaged in the protection and preservation of language rights and development. In terms of this, there are enthusiasts who are working on Dimasa language, and there are several organizations for that, especially Dimasa Blind Men. However, there is a gap in the coordination of the work, as in all the senior members or elderly members are into organizations who work for literature, and whereas there is this younger generation who are trying to make an attempt to revive the language and culture with different kinds of workshops and seminars. So there is a divide basically between the younger generation and the older generation in the development, because of which further there is no development and there is no such language activism actually functioning in the proper sense. Therefore, I would recommend both the generations to unite and blend their ideas and come forward together and share a common platform and work on the protection of the Dimasa language. Recently, Dimasa has been declared by the state government of Assam as the optional subject to be implemented in the school level. However, there is no news in practice, perhaps due to the corona lockdown and the pandemic. Looking into the NEP, the National Education Policy 2020, it looks positive that mother tongue education will be given preference. But what do we identify as a mother tongue, first of all? I mean, what does the Indian government identify as a mother tongue? First of all, Dimasa is not a scheduled language. When you talk about mother tongue education, we're basically trying to talk about the vernacular languages. So first preference will be given to the scheduled languages, which are the official languages of India. Dimasa is a minority language and is not a regional language of the state even, in spite of its being distributed in the 6 districts of Assam, which perhaps suggests that there is a huge amount of work required among the community members and state intervention as well. Then next point is regarding the relation of language and culture. Many people think that culture is more important than language. I would deny this, because when we talk about language and culture, it's basically like a flesh and bone theory. So language is the bone and culture is the flesh. Basically, all the evidences of cultural practices comes through the language. Most of the oral traditions, folk legends, or folk etymologies are all cultural specimens. So basically, a culture, a society cannot live without a language. Each word has a history on its own. For example, in Dimasa, one of the most popular words that I can bring in is Vishu, where B is to pray and Shu is to offer prayer to God, basically to Shivrai or Barai. Vishu is a harvest festival that the Dimasas conduct in late Jan as to pay obeisance and to be grateful to Lord Shivrai after a year-long harvest. What is important to know here is that Dimasas do not stay alone. They are neighbors to several other indigenous speech communities as well, including the Assamese community. Now, what we see is that in Assamese also, they have the term Bihu. So it's very clearly evident that Bihu has been derived from the Dimasa Vishu. There is a process where Sha in Assamese, the sound changes from Sha to Ha. So basically, that means the cultural connotation of harvest festival related to Vishu is very much Dimasa. Next example I could give is Khari, which we identify for the FP that we use in food. Not just Dimasas, in fact, all other ethnic groups which we call as Charis, we all use curry, but in Dimasa we call it as curry. We use it for cooking several delicacies like whether it's veg or non-veg, and in Assamese it's called as har. Or even the word riha, ri means clothes in Dimasa, and all other clothes that is related to clothes in general, we have the ri. So the skirt is the middle garments were women is jumping, the wrap over or around the body is called kausha, and riha is the cloth that you basically wrap around again. Now, Assamese also has the use of the word riha. So what I'm trying to show is that there is, acculturation of the cultures, and since Dimasa is very much one of the oldest languages of Assam, perhaps there is shared assimilation, there is shared culture, there is shared cultural assimilation apart from the linguistic ones. So what I want to say is that it's very important to understand that we need to speak our language because the entire history lies in these words. And of course, we need to work on language standardization. We need to develop scripts. Right now, Roman is the adopted script of the Dimasa language, not Bengali. However, more than the script, what is more important in the 21st century is the extensive use of the spoken language in social media and mass media. As we can see, we are now live at a webinar, and this kind of medium will continue, and I think Dimasa language has to be as extensively used as possible. Also, another way to revive the language is in terms of landscaping and digital art, which is something the present generation is very much into because of the creativity. There can be t-shirts, or there can be some badges, or there can be anything where you can make use of the taglines in Dimasa, some kind of tagline, some kind of words which can be used to promote the language. This is very much need of the hour. Also, there has not been any such known projects which is extensively working on the Dimasa language from any university or research institutes at present. So I would highly recommend a research project to be undertaken to document the language and to make the data accessible in the net. Whether it is a collection of stories, proverbs, riddles, rhymes, songs, or dances, or any kind of cultural practices. So as long as this is not done, the hope of the language to survive in the future remains dim. Even if there is a good amount of maintenance among the speakers of the language, with the positive attitude among them, still the future remains dim because the efforts of revitalization is really less. Do I still have time? Or should I end my note here? Amanda,
You have 3 more minutes to wrap it up. Yeah.
Okay. So I can share my experiences on working on the Dimasa language. When food, I was invited in different places, so Hashao, Howard, and Adibasi, and I realized each region has its own dishes. So the Hawa region has its own ways of preparing food. The Dembra has its own ways of preparing food. Hashao again and Diju are the same. Each region has its own food delicacies. So what we can understand is that Dimasa is not just one single language is not just one single language. There are sub variations in the culture, there are variations in the language. So altogether, it's an umbrella term to represent these 4 regions. Hence, it is very important to not just document the standard dialect, not just document and revive only the Hashao culture as the embodiment of Dimasa, but the entire 4 regions, that is Hashao, Howard, and Rakhine. I think I would wrap up my notes here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monali, for bringing in your expert opinion. And due to some network problem, like we could not decipher a few of your speech, but more or less, like we could hear it, but not all of it. And I would also like to highlight few of the points that she highlighted during the course of her speech. That a very important issue also, that it is important to bridge the generation gap between the older and the younger generation, because we have this issue of the older generation being the human repository of our culture and history and custom, while the younger generation have a different aspirations to how they want to carry forward with the indigenous languages. So I think it's really important to bridge this generational gap. And she also suggested a few points regarding the NEP policy, where a 3-language formula comes into play, and she has suggested that language priority should be distributed evenly based on the geography where the Masa people are located geographically. And also another interesting point, question that she raised is what would be considered as indigenous mother tongue, because priority of NEP is given to scheduled languages, but the concern of the non-scheduled languages are not addressed properly. So and most importantly, she also highlighted today's topic, saying that we should speak our mother tongue, because our mother tongue carries a lot of history, and there are a lot of meanings embedded in our words, and there are lots of history in the origin of our words. So thank you so much, Dr. Monali. Now we are heading towards the Q&A session, because we have completed, we are done with our panel discussion. So first of all, there are a few questions that are directed directly to our speakers. So I would ask them to answer these questions. So the first question is for Dr. Modi. Question is that, as a linguist from indigenous tribal background, can you hear me? Yeah, as a linguist from indigenous tribal background, what are your practical suggestions for upcoming tribal scholars or researchers who wants to work on endangered languages? So if you can respond it in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, as an indigenous community member, and if you are also interested, sincerely interested in with language documentation, language description, what would be my suggestion how to start? Was that question? Was it that question?
For the suggestion for upcoming tribal scholars or researchers who wants to work on endangered languages, your suggestions.
Yeah, for upcoming scholars, yeah, we the traditional way to go is to get the base training. You shouldn't start learning doing endangered language if you don't have the skill to do it. So that is my even personal request to anybody who wants to do language description work, especially on endangered languages. Be prepared, get the skill first. Yeah, you have to understand what kind of job you are going to get into. and make sure that once you start doing it, do it sincerely. And not to forget to also reach out to other people who have already walked that path, in the sense that there are lots of people who would once you started once you start asking help, there will be lots of people who would like to help you. So you shouldn't shy away yourself, especially if you are a community members. Especially if you are from Northeast and you are interested to work on one of the community language. I can also personally invite you to one of the organizations that we run. I mean, before the COVID, but we run called Trickle, which is training and resources for indigenous language community, and which we organize in India, and Mosul is a big part of that, who is also not only a community resource member, but also a trainer. And we collaborate with other international scholars, and we try to provide training and also try to find resources for people who are interested to work on their languages. I mean, not just as an academic researchers, but also as community leaders.
Thank you. Now we have a question for Sir Mostel. As a minority tribe in Manipur striving to protect its language and identity, to what extent it is possible to disassociate language protection from the politics of the region? I hope you got the question. Sir Mosel?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Did you get the question?
Can you read it please again?
Yes. As a minority tribe in Manipur, striving to protect its language and identity, to what extent it is possible to disassociate language protection from the politics of the region?
To disassociate from the politics of the region.
Yes.
It was not the point of disassociating politics of the region from the politics of the region. It was my personal thing to interact within my own community without joining the political activities, so that I can freely mingle with any kind of people to get the information, feedback. When I am involved in the politics, I won't be able to take complete data or complete information from everyone. So that was what I mean. But disassociating from politics by the community itself may not be possible. Does my statement answer the question?
Okay, thank you. I hope it answered the question of the one who posed the question. Yeah. Anu ji, एक question है आपके लिए. What were your challenges in the documenting process? आपको documentation process की time किस तरह का कठिनाई का सामना करना पड़ा है?
जब मैं ये रिकॉर्डिंग्स करने जाते हैं तो बोलने से बहुत तरह तरह के कठिनाई आते हैं, फिर भी हम कर लेते हैं। सबसे बड़ा बात ये है कि जो कभी-कभी जो लोग हैं बस्ती के जो लोग हैं, उन लोग से एक रिकॉर्डिंग्स लेने के लिए कभी कभी हम उनके पास बार बार जाना पड़ता है, क्योंकि उन लोग के पास समय नहीं होता है कभी कभी, और वो लोग उतना पता नहीं होता है कि ये क्यों ये रिकॉर्डिंग्स लेता है। फिर भी हम लोग उन्हें समझाते हैं ऐसा है, इसको आगे जाकर हम प्रिजर्व करके रखते हैं, ऐसा कह के हम उन लोग से जाके करते हैं। पर कभी कभी जो हम जिस तरह से चाहिए वो कभी कभी सामने में नहीं हो पाता है। फिर भी हम कोशिश करते हैं। कभी कभी क्या होता है, हम सब रिकॉर्डिंग्स जितने भी हमारे पास सामान है सब बैग से बुक के उनके घर भी पहुंच जाते हैं कभी कभी। फिर भी चलो थोड़ा होने से भी रिकॉर्डिंग कर लो करके ना उनसे रिक्वेस्ट करके फिर हम ये ध्यान रखते हैं कि वो खुशी से करने देगा कि नहीं, वो सबसे बड़ा ध्यान रखता है। फिर भी कभी कभी हम उनसे बात करके, वैसे तो बस्ती का लोग अच्छा है, वो लोग फिर वो लोग का बस्ती में एकदम बिजी लाइफ होने, खेती अपना ही खेती करना, घर का काम ये सब करने में मस्त रहता है उन लोग, इसलिए वो लोग से और हमारा ये सब काम में उसका टाइम नहीं निकाल पाते, इसलिए थोड़ा थोड़ा कभी प्रॉब्लम्स आ जाते हैं। और हाँ, प्रॉब्लम बोलने से बहुत तरह के प्रॉब्लम होते हैं, लेकिन रिकॉर्डिंग के दौरान हम ये सब प्रॉब्लम फेस करना पड़ता है।
Dhanyavad. Now we have a direct question for Dr. Kamal from Facebook. Dr. Kamal, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the person have asked to Dr. Kamal, how will we go? How will we go ahead to your points, especially in Assam? I think the person wants to know how the suggestions or the proposal that you have suggested will actually be implemented in the political contestation regarding languages in Assam.
Yeah. So regarding those proposals, regarding those ideas, so what I will suggest, there should be two kind of approach that I can suggest. One is completely individualistic, like community, individualistic as well as community effort. And at the same time, I think we should approach to the institution. Institutional process, institutional approach is quite required right now. Say there should be two things. One is individual, one is the institutionalized approach. So I believe that the basic initiation should be started by some community people, some interested people, and they can take to one particular level doing some work. Say just now Anupam has explaining how she is recording and all. So those things, yeah, I think you need some basic training. Then you can record those songs, folktales, languages, words, and those will be given to the submitted to the community people who are actually expert, then linguists, and also to the institution who can work on it on a systematic way, because systematic research and systematic process is required to preserve this language. Because what I have observed as a writer, since I'm not a linguist, so for me as a person it's really very difficult. But say if I record some poetry, say some oral poem, or if I have some recorded some words from a very elderly person, now the next part should be taken up by some institution, some experts, a linguist, say that expertization is required. So I believe in that case our colleges, our universities, and our language institutions should work on some particular step-by-step process, so that can be taken up by them, and that can be institutionalized and standardized. I believe that some responsibility comes to the organizations also, like say Assam Sahitya Sabha. They are currently doing some poetry reading where they are accommodating the tribal voices and other endangered languages voices. But that should go beyond to that level. Say coming up with dictionaries where the words from Adibasi communities have been included. That is the need of the hour. And even in that, in some particular dictionary, say the other languages also, which in the boundary of Assam, say just like Dimasa, then Tiwa, Karbi, Missing, all these words can be included in those archive actually. And I believe some archival effort is also required. So basically audio visual thing. So if we can do in that way. But for Adivasi languages, what I feel, first initially some individual effort is required so that the issues can be raised, the things can be looks like important. Then the institution will take up those things. Just like I will give an example. When I was working on, say, for Sadri language, and say trying to find the relationship between all the Assamese language, because since I am not an expert, then I just scroll through and find out that there are some research going on in Tezpur University in the language department. There was a student called I don't know her present whereabout, Dr. Lucky Day. She was working on Assam Sadri under Madhumita Borboramen. Then I understood that this kind of approach is required. So it may be from the community, maybe from the outside community, maybe from the institution. I think that way, if we can take up our languages, I think there are still hope. I still hope for the best.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kamal. We have a question for you, Dr. Monali. I think can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so I think this is an
Yes,
apt
yes.
question for you. So the question is clubbed to how can we protect native languages in districts which have multiple or different native language speakers? Usually one or two of the communities are dominant ones and have the resources, documented material to preserve their own. The other languages find it hard to compete. How can such minority languages be given their adequate space in such situation?
Okay. Okay, I'll just give one example of my district, Himachal district. There is no dominant language in Himachal district because there are 12 languages spoken and the lingua franca is after Hindi. Of course, English as the official language. However, in spite of Dimasa being the majority group in the district, there are other languages which have also been taken care of. Now, initiative has to come from the community members because you see, previously I was working in this university at the Center for Indigenous Languages, and because I belong to Dimahashal district and I am familiar with the languages of my district, so I proposed the idea of documenting Yatik and Ramkot, and these were documented. The research projects have been carried on and they are ongoing in the Center for Indigenous Languages. What I want to say is that until and unless somebody from the community or somebody who is familiar with these languages do not approach the concerned authorities or institutes or universities, nobody will be able to document them. Somebody or the other will have to bring it forward. For example, there was one native speaker of Zaike language from Mizoram. He mailed me that somebody needs to document the language. There is no work done on the Zaike language of Mizoram. I have submitted a proposal to NEC and on behalf of the Tezpur University Center for Indigenous Languages, and the proposal has been accepted, and there will be a project coming up soon after the pandemic. So this is how the languages which are non-dominant can be taken up for documentation. Somebody has to take the initiative, whether it is the community members or whether it is people who are working for languages, who are familiar with it and need to come up with a proposal, or somebody will have to bring it up. So if the one who has questions has any language in mind, please do not hesitate to feel free to share which language you want to document, which language you want to, you want to emphasize that they need to be documented. Please mail it to me. I hope the organizers have carried it.
Thank you. We have a question for you, Dr. Modi. Yeah, so I would love to know the panelists' thought in cases of close language affinities between relatively small or closely related indigenous communities, if they think there is a need for establishment of a particular language as a common lingua franca of communities of close affinity, or if there are other means of navigation that may be thought of in such cases. Did you get my question? Did you get the question? Can you unmute?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I got the point. I didn't hear the whole sentence, but I got the point. It's about lingua franca and mutual understanding between two languages, right?
Mm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was it about how we can work in a society with more than two languages?
Yeah, closely language which shares close affinity.
Yes.
And yeah, and of course in a very diverse community with a lot of languages, and also who share very closely related close affinity languages, whether there is a need for a particular language, if they should develop a particular language as a lingua franca, or is there any other way to navigate? That is the question.
Okay. I mean, all these social linguistics issues, it's all depend on the community themselves. I mean, it's the need of the community that that require them to, to start a lingua franca, to communicate with a particular group. So it all depends on their need. I mean, if the requirement is, if the, I mean, for example, if the Arunachal felt like, we are put together in one state now, how do we communicate? And we find Hindi as a language that, more or less work, at least we can talk to each other and share our views. And, in that sense, why not? But doesn't mean that we have to force, if you think you have a language that are related. And yeah, I don't think that it should be necessary for every community to start thinking of, having a lingua franca. I mean, if there is already an existing lingua franca, use it. Why not? Yeah, but if if that lingua franca is not sufficient, then maybe you can find another way. I mean, say, for example, in Arunachal Pradesh, there used to be a lingua franca called Nepalese. It worked with the older people. Yeah, it was basically serving as a very good lingua franca in the foothill. But as people became more educated, and there were lots of there were more Hindi speakers coming into the states. Now Hindi just took over as the lingua franca, and it's working the same way as Nepalese did, but it has a broader role in the society. And it's, yeah, I mean that's basically it.
Okay, thank you so much. And there are more questions which have come, but I think our time is very limited, and we won't be able to take all the questions, but we shall share the questions to the panelists, and the participants can also reach the speakers on their official email, whoever is willing to connect with them. And once again, I just want to thank all the panelists for giving their time to be here with us. And may फिर से सब पैनलिस्ट को बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ कि आप लोग ने अपनी कीमती समय दिया और आप लोग का जो योगदान है ट्राइबल भाषा को बचाने, अपने पहचान को बचाने, वो काम का सराहना की जाए वो भी कम लगता है. So thank you so much for giving us your time and putting forward your very interesting and important point of view, and we would love to have you again, and NESF will always reach out to you in case we need help regarding any issue on language, or if we have any questions. I hope you people will be there even if we reach out to you in the future. And I also want to thank all the audience in Facebook. We have a diverse audience from different community. So thank you so much for your time and joining us in our live streaming. And please follow our NESF Facebook page, and we shall update you with all our upcoming activities. With that, I hope that you'll have a lovely evening and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks to all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Your voice is not coming, Amanda.
We'll reach out to you on the email, and
Yeah,
if there
sure.
is